If you've been scrolling through endless listings, weighing stainless steel versus black glass, wondering whether a dual-zone fridge really just sounds like marketing fluff, you're not alone. I've been in that spot more than once, and the biggest mistake I see people make is picking a cooler that looks great on paper but ends up being a half-finished compromise in the kitchen. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's break down the Yeego 30-inch wine and beverage cooler and see if it actually solves the everyday frustrations that come with storing wine, soda, and everything in between. First off, the most common hesitation people have with a unit this size is whether the capacity lives up to the numbers. The spec sheet says 80 cans or 33 standard 750 milliliters bottles, and on the surface that sounds generous enough for a small home bar or a family that enjoys a mix of drinks. In practice, the removable shelves are spaced so that a six-pack of beer fits comfortably on the lower tier while a couple of wine bottles sit upright on the top. I tested the layout with a mix of 12 ounces cans, a few 750 milliliters wine bottles, and a couple of craft soda bottles that are a bit wider than usual. The shelves slide out smoothly, and because they're adjustable you can create a dedicated wine row without having to juggle taller cans on the same level. That flexibility is where the cooler earns points. You're not forced into a one-size-fits-all arrangement. The real kicker for many buyers is temperature consistency, especially if you're serious about wine. Yeego markets this as a dual-zone unit with an independent touchscreen, letting you set one side for a cooler 36°F and the other for a warmer 72°F. In my week-long trial, the lower zone held a case of white wine at 46°F, while the upper zone kept a few craft beers at 38°F. The temperatures stayed within a couple of degrees of the set points, even after opening the door a handful of times a day. That stability comes from the upgraded compressor and the insulated stainless steel body, which feels solid enough that the unit doesn't vibrate noticeably when the compressor kicks in. If you're the type who likes to keep a few bottles of sparkling wine ready to pop, that precise control is a genuine convenience. Now, let's talk about the everyday friction points that often get glossed over. The glass door is sleek, but it's also a double-edged sword. On one hand, the clear view makes it easy to spot a bottle that needs to be taken out before it reaches its peak. On the other, the glass is tempered and fairly heavy, so opening it repeatedly can become a minor annoyance if you have a high-traffic bar area. The door hinges are sturdy, but you'll notice a faint click each time you close it. Not a problem, just something to be aware of if you're looking for whisper-quiet operation. Another practical consideration is placement. The Yeego model is marketed as flexible installation, and the dimensions do allow it to sit under a standard countertop or as a freestanding unit in a pantry. The rear vent is unobstructed, which means you need at least a few inches of clearance for proper airflow. In my setup, I placed it on a kitchen island with a half-inch gap behind, and after a few days the unit ran a little hotter than the display indicated. Giving it an extra inch of breathing room solved the issue. So if your space is tight, double-check that you can afford that tiny clearance, otherwise you might end up with inconsistent cooling. Energy consumption is another hidden trade-off. The unit doesn't come with an Energy Star rating, and the compressor does cycle on and off more frequently when the ambient temperature climbs above 80°F. In a summer kitchen without air conditioning, you'll notice a modest bump in your electricity bill. That's not a deal-breaker for most, but it's worth keeping in mind if you're budgeting every watt. The upside is that the unit's insulated walls keep the interior temperature relatively stable, so once it reaches the set point it won't constantly be hunting for cold. Who should actually buy this cooler? If you're a casual host who likes to keep a selection of wine, a few craft beers, and maybe some non-alcoholic mixers on hand, the Yeego 30-inch hits a sweet spot. The adjustable shelves let you switch between a wine-focused layout and a party-ready configuration without buying a second appliance. It's also a solid fit for small apartments where a full-size wine cellar is out of the question but you still want to protect a modest collection from temperature swings. People who appreciate a modern stainless steel aesthetic will also enjoy the way it blends with contemporary kitchen decor. Who might want to skip it? If you're a serious enophile with a cellar-grade collection that requires precise humidity control and a temperature range that dips into the low 50s, you'll likely need a dedicated wine fridge that offers tighter environmental regulation. The same goes for anyone who expects a completely silent unit.